My name is Tara Petit. I'm the mother of 3 lifelong vegans. I went vegan in 1999, about 26 years old, mainly because I read John Robbins' book, Diet for New America, and that prompted me to start delving into the internet, which was kind of new to me at the time, and saw some factory farm footage, and that was it. that sealed the deal for me, and took a couple years to kind of navigate what vegan even was without support, but that's where we started.
Were there any seeds prior to that kind of maybe got your mind prepared for that?
I was like just ready at the time. Everyone says they love animals. I think it was the imagery, and also reading the book. I had a past of disordered eating. I had struggles with my weight my whole life. And honestly, when I saw John Robbins' book in A Book's a Million in, I think it was Clarksville, Tennessee, back in 1999, I was drawn to it mainly because of the title Diet, and thinking maybe this has the solution for me in my weight struggles. Just by that, reading more about the animal agricultural industry in that book kind of opened my mind to more beyond just my own food struggles and challenges with eating, so yeah.
Okay. And what kind of changes did you notice physiologically, mentally, emotionally after?
Honestly, like I said, it took me a few years to kind of just deal with my own food demons and food addictions, and really just kind of, and also like I said, I hadn't even heard the word vegan prior to this time. So it took me a few years to find more information, more support, learn how to grocery shop, learn how to eat better, and work on like the binge eating that I had been doing with like junk foods and things that obviously were highly processed and animal based, a lot of them. So yeah, it was an evolution that kind of unfolded. Starting with animal rights, that's what prompted me, just like the atrocities of that industry, but then also kind of redirecting it at my own health and my own behavior. This is, I always say, like a vegan diet is not the solution to all your health problems. A whole foods, plant-based, like clean food diet can be. But for me, like I said, it was a while, many years, where I switched to vegan, but I was still eating processed foods that weren't, I wasn't really taking care of myself. So it wasn't until I was, years later, like we had moved to Maryland at this time, and I was 31. I was 120 pounds overweight, even though I was vegan. And something just clicked in me, like I can't do this, like I need to make a change. And it's kind of, I don't know, like I always say, it was like some kind of divine intervention, but like the same way when I went vegan, it was a line in the sand for me. And same with, at that point for my health, it just kind of turned it on, myself, and said I need to use this knowledge I have of a vegan diet, but also, just health in general, and apply it to myself. And from that point on, slowly eating a cleaner vegan diet, I lost over 100 pounds over the next couple years, and that was 20 years ago. And so that was inspiring because I saw health changes, but it's still, even today, 20 years later, it's still like those images of those animals and that suffering that keeps me vegan. Yeah.
So it sounds like quintessentially at the core, you are truly an ethical vegan.
I would say so.
Yeah. Which is kind of redundant, ethical vegan.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, everyone has their why, and I guess maybe you could sustain this for a long term just based on your own health goals. But I don't think. For me, it's just that's the baseline for why I do this. Like, because I have lots of friends that eat healthy and eat animal products and don't overeat and exercise, and they are healthy people. So it's not that I couldn't be a decently healthy version of myself by including some animal products, but for me it's just not an option. There's really no evidence that would convince me otherwise, scientifically or not. There's especially the way we do things in this culture right now, and the factory farming, and it just there'd be no reason for me to.
Yeah, and your friends might be healthy on the surface, but the underlying potential there for chronic disease, even in moderation.
Theoretically, and even, there's all sorts of, I have studied I do have a master's degree in health and wellness coaching. I've studied nutrition enough to know there's many layers to health and the domains of health and, you know, stress and all these other things that we can consider. I'm not saying by being vegan and in myself that I'm healthier than anybody who's like eating a similar diet and adding a few animal products here and there. But it's like, that's the ethical thing for me. It's a karma thing. And
well, that's not even really a fair comparison. I guess the better comparison would be like between you and your non-vegan you.
Yeah, that's right. You can only compare yourself to you. And I know that for me, even from a health standpoint, I know that adding, you know, a couple animal-based products into my diet wouldn't probably change my health too much in terms of long term, but it's just not who I am anymore. It doesn't feel in alignment with who I am. So.
Having children, how did you know that would be a healthy and appropriate way to raise your children, or even have a pregnancy and all that?
Like I said, I read that book during my first pregnancy back in 1999. And I didn't really, of course, you know, when you're a new parent, you're reading all sorts of stuff. And I did establish that it was safe to, you know, like a balance. You have to pay attention to nutrition no matter what type of diet. Most parents want to feed their children the healthiest thing. I mean, I guess some of us end up feeding our kid the easiest thing, but most of the time we want to feed them the healthiest thing. So I was reading, and it took, like I said, a couple years with my first child. We were vegan at home, but we would still, like, we were going out with family members and stuff, and there'd be some dairy or things here and there, and I didn't really understand, you know, the whole spectrum of vegan foods at the time. But it was a slow process, but I got enough information that I knew that, like, long as I was paying attention to the quality of their nutrition, it would be healthy. My son was born in 2002, and he ended up having severe allergies, severe full body eczema, which was a whole nother story. And he, at 4 months old, he got something called Kawasaki disease, which it ended up damaging his heart a little bit. And there was, so that made me delve into nutrition even more. And raising him was even more of a challenge because we were committed to being vegan, but he also had a lot of food allergies. So we had different elements in there, but overall, like, I felt I had the baseline knowledge that as long as I was paying attention to balanced nutrition, that a vegan diet was safe and healthy for all stages of life, as they say.
Yeah. So the first child was when you were transitioning, and the first couple of years going in the right direction, but it wasn't 100%.
Right.
And then the next two were 100% from the get-go.
Right.
And the third one had some interesting allergies.
Second child,
yes. Second child, okay. And what kind of allergies were the?
He still does. He's 21 years old now. His allergies, we only found out he was allergic to dairy through life because somebody accidentally gave him something or whatever. So we knew that anyway, but nuts, he's allergic to most nuts. We haven't tested all nuts because usually once you're allergic to a couple, they don't want you to have any. He's actually allergic to chickpeas, lentils, and peas, which are really weird things and hard for somebody. He's an athlete, so to be in like the protein, you know, powder space and stuff, it's in everything. So it had its challenges. It also forced us to be more creative. It forced us to eat home a lot more and pay attention more to our own nutrition and balance. So it had its positive sides too.
Wow, yeah, really think more about food, the more challenges you get thrown at you.
For sure, and that you know, even something you'd think would be really hard to accommodate, being vegan and with all these allergies, you know, you find your comfort zone, you find the things that work for you. And even now, he's a good label reader, and he manages, so yeah.
Yeah, and all three of your children have maintained the veganism?
Yes, surprisingly, like we have 16, 21, and 24, and you know, you wonder when they go off to college and things like that, the pressures and stuff, and even my son being in a like athletic space, and so far everyone's maintained that path, and yeah.
So as far as your son, his allergies, this just goes to show that, you know, even in the most challenging situations, you can still pull this off. So
Sure.
Like soy, I guess, is a big part of his diet.
It is actually. You know, he had a battery of allergy tests early on, and some of them were like came back as sensitivities. but we kind of observed those sensitivities in his own life, and he never had any like issues with actual practical side effects. So one of them was a wheat, and I think maybe soy, but he's consumed wheat and soy pretty much as staples for a lot of his food, a lot of edamame, of course a lot of beans and stuff too, but never any problem. We've all consumed a lot of tofu and things like that for many, many years, and no negative side effects that we know about. He can't eat lentils, chickpeas, and peas he's allergic to. So, but all the beans, so like white beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, all those are really popular. And then, tofu. Tofu's in tempeh and.
Yeah. So there's plenty of options there. Yeah. I have interviewed somebody else who had a child who was allergic to tree nuts.
We are too, but yeah. Like coconut, they call it tree nut, but he can eat that, yeah.
Don't allergies also change over time?
I mean, there's all sorts of theories. Like there's, even with the peanut allergy, there's a theory that, if you slowly desensitize the person, that you can eliminate the allergy or reduce the severity of it. But it can be kind of dangerous if, so we've never really dabbled with that. Of course, he's said sometimes like he's accidentally been exposed to peanuts and didn't have any serious reaction, but he has had serious reactions to like cashews and almonds and things like that. So he's wondered if he could be tested or incorporate some additional nuts into his life, but it's risky because there's so many that are packaged in the same factories and stuff together. So yeah, so it's just a challenge.
Now your third child.
She's 16.
She's like not got anything going on there like
no
that?
No allergies, yeah. Knock on wood.
As far as fostering their independence, knowing that you're doing that in such a way that also encourages them or maintains the veganism, how did you go about that? Like, because around 7, 8, 9, they become more independent, and it's important that you don't want them to like buck you, right? Or do the opposite of what you're trying to teach them.
You emotionally let go in a way. You set you have your hopes, but you expect that this young person is going to go out in the world and interact with lots of people, and you have It is a tricky thing because you don't want to, people say you're indoctrinating your child or whatever, but you do want, just like most parents do, you want to share your values with your child. So it was a common conversation. I wouldn't say we showed them like graphic factory farm videos all the time, but we did watch like videos about animal sanctuaries, and we talked about like the impact of the food system, and so they were aware of it, and I think that stuck with them in a lot of situations. And there's some teasing and things here and there, but overall we surrounded ourselves with a pretty supportive community, even though it wasn't a very vegan-friendly area we live in, but we had some good friends, and it made it easier.
Nice. So surrounding yourself with people that are supportive and educating them at, I guess, what age did you start introducing the ethical educational component?
To our kids?
Yeah.
Just from the beginning, they always knew that we were doing something different than their peers, mostly. Even their grandparents and family members were doing something different than we were, so that was pretty much in their face all the time. Like every time we'd go anywhere, we're either bringing this or we're choosing not to eat that. I guess there was, a handful of times where there was like an amazing looking birthday cake or something like that where they maybe felt excluded, but I always tried to have like an option or something. I found that even as they got older, they didn't even care about the substitution. They're just like, I just don't want that anyway. So you navigate each situation independently, and you just do your best. And I think it's, especially as they get into the teen years, you don't want to come off too zealous or too overbearing, but you just keep reminding them of why you choose to do this. Yeah.
And as far as like the pregnancies, and how did those go?
Definitely, as my knowledge of nutrition improved and my own body got more balanced from that, it was easier. My third pregnancy was, 17 years ago, so it was uneventful. It was pretty easy. All of them were pretty easy. Like my births anyway were pretty easy, other than my second child having some medical concerns after he was born. Yeah.
And then did you have support from your healthcare professionals along the way?
It was, every kid was in a different location. The first one was in an Army hospital, and right before we were getting ready to move. But it was fine. I was actually, I was new to, I was just changing my diet during that pregnancy, so I don't even remember really talking about it much. The second one was in Connecticut, and we chose to do a home birth, and so yes, I had really great support from my midwives, and they were all vegetarian and totally into eating healthy and supportive, and they actually brought me healthy food during my birth and everything, so that was good. And then I'm trying to think here, and we're in Maryland now for my last pregnancy. I guess I mentioned that I'm vegan, but like at this point I'm so self-sufficient, so knowledgeable about what I need for myself, and that I'm on the right path, that I really wasn't asking for too much input about my nutrition.
Yeah. And then as far as like breastfeeding, did you do all that?
Yeah, we did all three. And like I said, the second child, because he had the severe eczema, I had done, actually it was another experiment in diet, because I was doing elimination diets for like 6 months to try to see if what I was eating was affecting him and his skin condition. And so I learned all sorts of things about how foods affect me through that process. But yeah, I breastfed for a few years each one, yeah.
And then as far as like introducing new foods, any tips or tricks there, or like, how did that go?
You mean it when they were
solid
little?
Foods?
We just started with like all the typical like mushy sweet potato and just tasty little thing. I don't even remember. It was very gradual and organic. Like it wasn't. They just tried some of the whole foods we were eating and mashed things up. And I don't think we ever really did like jarred foods or anything like that. Maybe for travel or something. But yeah, it was very gradual.
Yeah, I like the way you said organic, just natural, gradual.
Yeah.
Yeah, because raising my son, it was kind of like that too. It's like, what, did I even feed him?
Yeah, I know. They start to tell you when they're reaching for things and they want to try what you're taking, or they'll, suck on something you're eating or whatever. So yeah, it wasn't, I don't remember it being like a defining moment, but it just happened kind of gradually, yeah.
So as far as like legumes and greens and grains, outside of the allergies and things, you covered all those categories pretty early, like right away. Legumes, greens, grains, fruits, veggies, mushrooms, nuts, seeds.
Yeah, and like I said, like once in the first few years, I kind of solidified my own understanding of nutrition better. And we just paid attention to making sure they were getting a variety of foods. Like, you don't want, with any diet, you don't want your kid just eating like Cheerios every day or whatever. You want them to experience a diversity of different foods and nutrients. So it's mainly what we focused on was just diversity. Yeah.
I'm curious if you think what you're doing is setting your children up for the most protective way against chronic disease, to reduce chronic disease as much as possible, as well as the ethical side. And do you feel like it's the most advantageous way to reduce risk for chronic disease and all-cause mortality?
Yeah, I think like a whole foods, plant-based diet is one of the best ways to reduce your risks, whatever your genetics are. Raising people through the teen years, there's a lot of pressures and influences, and also there's a lot of amazing vegan junk food out there these days. There's so many products, and so when we got to that point, we weren't gonna like jump all over them for wanting to eat Ben and Jerry's, even though I think from a health standpoint, it's not a healthy food. So yes, I do think I'm giving them the knowledge that if their health balance veers off where they want it to be in life, that they know where to come back to. But will it be their path all the time? That's on them as they navigate the world, because there's a lot of things out there that are gonna influence. Yeah,
beautifully said. Now, as far as though what you're doing, what you have control over, this is something that it sounds like you feel is the best thing you could be doing.
For myself, I talk about it both from like, ethics is what inspires me to be vegan, but, just kind of like I always like say, it's kind of cliche, but a clean diet, or, whole foods, plant-based diet. I was talking to somebody today about like, well, like say you're a smoker, you've quit, you want to quit, it's bad for you, but you're like, well, once a week when I'm with my best friend, I'm going to have a cigarette, and I can control it. I'm just having one. Mm-hmm. But then maybe all week, because you've had that one, you're thinking about that cigarette, and so you're going to smoke again. And maybe you're not, but most people would have like that kind of, it continues the cycle. Whereas if you just kind of get rid of it, you go through the discomfort of withdrawal, and then you don't think about it as much or at all. Yeah. Everybody's different. I know my dad quit smoking like when I was a teenager, and 20 years later he said he would, when he smelled a cigarette, he still would like one, but he said but he didn't have that physiological like need to do it. So everyone's different, but for me, just like keeping a clean diet is kind of like my sobriety, like, but it's coming from a passive, like I said, disordered eating. It gives me a peace, like, okay, it's easy to eat this way. It makes me feel good. I don't have to suffer with, I mean, even in my 20s, I was dealing with chronic digestive issues, heartburn, joint pain, all these things that I felt like, well, God, if I'm, like I was, at the time when I really started to lose weight and focus on my nutrition, I was just 30 or 31. And I thought like, well, geez, if this is where I am at 30, where's it going? So for me, just even giving myself, I'm 51 now, so I'm starting to age, and you're gonna have things anyway, but I gave myself like 20 years, I feel like, to feel a lot more engaged in life and just have more vitality. So for me, it's just a no-brainer. But
now, do you feel like you feel better now than you did then?
Yes, and I feel more hopeful too, because I feel like I have the tools. I recognize that I'm aging and like I can't combat everything with diet, but I feel like back then I was dealing with psychological issues too that were causing me to overeat and make poor choices, and so working on that, of course, helped a lot of the things. But yeah, I feel like these days I have better tools for managing things that pop up, lifestyle issues that pop up, and but like I said, you can't combat everything with diet, but you'd be surprised. Well, you might not be, but what the things that diet can improve in your life. Yeah.
As far as people not raising their children this way, I know we don't want to really like shame people or be condescending or whatever, but aren't they kind of doing a disservice to their children? I
mean, that's a whole like cultural layer. It's really like in my lifetime I've seen major progress, but I always think about myself, at 25, I didn't even know what vegan meant. So I think the world's come a long way, and a lot of people are like veg friendly and know what even like that means, but it's surprising how many people don't even really understand that at all. Even people I meet in my everyday life just don't even understand what vegan means. So I think you
without knowing,
right,
they're doing a disservice for their children.
Right, and I think, I don't know, I think we all want to do the best for our children. I think we do the best with what we have, the knowledge we have at the time, and I think the best thing we can do is just share what we're doing in a positive light, and hope that
without saying, hey, you're doing something that's
right,
toxic to your child in the long run.
Right, because and it comes down to the fact that we all want to raise our children with our own values and our own lifestyle, and that's everybody's right to do that within reason, But so yeah, you just have to kind of model what works for you, and hope that, if some people are interested, they might ask you questions or whatever. But yeah, it's hard because we're still the minority. It's still the minority in most social circles, yeah.
Do you get support from family and friends now, or is that still a challenge? It's been challenging. I think there's layers to that too, like with health versus because there's being healthy, being vegan is one thing, and then trying to be a healthy vegan too, or just being a healthy eater in general can turn a lot of people off. But I've heard people's having real pushback from family and stuff. I'm an only child too, so I don't have a large extended family, and my mother is older, and she is not adopted a vegan lifestyle or anything, but she's never been anti-vegan, or she comes to my potlucks and things like that. But she's at least probably eating better because of you.
No, not at all. No, but she appreciates the fact that I've helped myself maybe overcome some of the challenges that she's facing. And friends wise, I would say that I've had some, supportive friends. I've had some friends I know that I was probably off-putting to. And I've had one friend I can think of in particular, actually her son is here with me. They've gone vegan over the years that we've known each other. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah. And when you said here, you want to share where we're at real quick?
Oh, Vegetarian Summerfest here, and Vegan Summerfest, it used to be called Vegetarian. Vegan Summerfest here in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Is this your first year, or?
No, this is actually my 4th, but I haven't been here in 12 years. So the last time we were here, I was just sending my daughter a picture of her with Dr. Greger when she was like 4. So yeah, so it's been a little while. So the experience is a little different this time because I'm not chasing toddlers around yet. Yeah.
Nice. And what is it about this event that you like?
It's just a nice opportunity to kind of like be in a space where you don't have to explain yourself. Everyone has the same focus, and then just kind of like that like-minded vibe, and and also to hear some of the more updated medical information about nutrition and just lifestyle stuff, and it just to be inspired. Yeah.
What does an ideal day of eating look like for you now?
Well, first of all, I always say like everybody's ideal is so different, and I've evolved to what works for my body. Usually I kind of a slow starter in the day, and I'm usually just drinking water until like noon, and then when I start to feel a little hungry, I usually have like not too much, either like a small smoothie or a couple pieces of fruit. And then it takes me a couple more hours to work up hunger again, and then I'll usually eat a dinner with my husband. He's a remote employee, so we kind of work around that schedule, and usually just, like I said, we focus on whole food, plant-based. So really our day-to-day diet is really simple and not too Instagram worthy or anything, just salads and pots of vegetables and soups and things like that. So, but yeah, pretty simple, and that's just what works for me. I know some people have to get up and have, want breakfast right away, and everybody's different. Lentil soup and or beans and chili. I make chili, and just a lot of different things. One of my favorite things now is that they're edamame noodles. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they're just basically edamame but pressed and dried. So we make pasta out of that, and oftentimes I'll just make a pot of vegetables and throw tahini and spices in there and just eat the pot of vegetables. I mean, really simple stuff. Throw beans in there or whatever. Day to day, I'm not super creative, but we do like to host potlucks every now and then, and that's when I usually I kind of be creative with what I share with other people.
When you do these potlucks, is that your way of being like an activist of sorts?
I would say so. The community we moved to in 2004 in Maryland was, I would say, not the most veg-friendly community at the time, and we had come from a Hartford, Connecticut area where we had a vegetarian society, and we had been going to regular potlucks, and that's kind of what helped get me through that transition time. When I moved to Maryland, I started a group, and eventually when we got on meetup.com, and so we have done that, I would say, pretty frequently up until the pandemic time, and then that kind of shifted things. But I try to do at least a holiday potluck every year, and it's kind of a time to connect with the handful of people, the diehard vegans in the community, and then also to just be open to anybody else who's interested in exploring that lifestyle. I found that the meetup.com groups have been really helpful. There's a lot, because we're about an hour and a half from DC area, so there's a lot going on down there. So those were largely helpful too in the beginning.
Cool. And now, are you online in a way that others can follow you, check you out, or?
No, like the Facebook. I do have a kind of an antiquated website called Greens and with the letter N, greensandgoodness.com.
Greensandgoodness.com.
Yeah. And I'm just on Facebook and. Yeah.
And what is Greens and Goodness about?
It's kind of evolved from we originally had a food buying co-op out of our garage, a produce buying co-op, and then I went and did my master's in health and wellness coaching. So I set it up as kind of my coaching thing, and then never really took off. And so it has a few blog posts and just a little bit of information about my journey on there. Yeah.
Are you doing health and wellness coaching now?
No, I'm not. Not really actively. Not for paid. No, I just whoever I talk to. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's so cool that you were doing a co-op out of your garage.
Yeah.
There's a co-op about an hour from me that's my favorite place to shop.
Yes,
but it's so
co-ops.
far,
Yeah, we love food co-ops, yeah.
Yeah, because you could get the best variety of freshest produce and different legumes and stuff at the really good ones. So is that something somebody could do out of their own garage and grow into something potentially?
Definitely. I mean, like, I think the landscape has changed a lot in the last like 15 years since we've been doing it with Amazon and all these other delivery services. We were working with grocery distributors that I don't believe, or they raised the minimum so that like small groups couldn't afford the minimum anymore. So I think we got kind of priced out of some of those, but yeah, definitely I can still order through a Amish farm up in our area, and they'll deliver to me twice a week if I wanted to. I have to have enough volume, which by myself I don't usually do, but for like holidays and stuff, we still order from them, and it's really great to get that like fresh produce locally. And
yeah, so yeah, because like a farmer's market, it's kind of the same way where you get different sources of produce.
Yeah.
And that's, Amish or just a local farmer or
whatever your local farms are. Yeah, you connect with them, and oftentimes you can find CSAs and yeah. Mm-hmm.
And some people even like, I've heard in an interview recently that there's a way to order, I don't remember how they did it, but like order from a local farm or a certain amount of food directly, like somehow.
There's like farm to table kind of boxes kind of things like that. Yeah, there's a couple organizations or business models I know a couple of cycled through my area and changed and everything, but I still end up going back to this particular farm that I've always worked with, and just they require you buy cases of items, so oftentimes I'll just change up what I want to order a case of, and it's always really fresh and good. So
cool. So now, as far as your son, he's a hockey player, you said?
Yes, he's graduated high school. He did a year college hockey this year, and he's actually trying out for an FPHL team this week while we're here. So yeah, he's busy with that. Yeah.
So there's no shortage of protein there.
No, he's managed just fine. Yeah. That's a big topic all the time though in athletics, like where you get your protein. Yeah.
Are any of your kids activists of any sort to any degree?
My daughters and I have talked about this just being here, like how they've cycled. My oldest is 24 and she's cycled through, she's actually participated in protests and things and in her time. But just, I think we consider activism just our daily life and the way we live and holding true to our ideals and being respectful of people, but sharing what we do and standing up in those times where, we feel like we need to. But I wouldn't say we're holding signs on the corner that much these days, but we kind of try to do that in our daily life.
Well, this is so great. I really appreciate you taking the time out from a very long day.
It was a good day. Yeah.
I'm sure you're pretty tired. I know I got a really nice nap in, so I'm probably not as tired as you.
I know.
But I got a website called raisingchildrenvegan.com that I just started prior to this interview, which I'm kind of dating things. But anyway, to me, this is like the most important work I've ever done in my life, because I think this is the biggest way to push the movement forward, is to educate people that, hey, this is not just an option, but it might be the best way to be raising your children, normalizing that idea.
Kind of dispersing some of that fear people have, especially new parents, around the fact that they're getting so much pressure, maybe from their pediatrician, depending on how educated the doctor is. You can fall prey to that fear when you're a new parent and you want to do the best for your baby, and you feel like, oh well, if I'm not feeding them this or that I'm somehow depriving them or limiting their growth potential. And I mean, feeding your child a balanced diet is really important, and there are cases where people are too restrictive and too overzealous with certain dogmas. Or I actually was on a raw vegan diet myself for like 7 years. Wow. And I knew just intuitively, but also from nutrition studies, that wasn't something I needed to bring my kids along on. That was my journey and my health experiment, and I learned a lot from it, but I wouldn't ever impose. They of course chose to try some of my things and stuff, but I would never like put that on them as like a structure for them. But I could see where like some people have, and maybe that is just too restrictive for a growing body. So you do have to be careful, and if you want to be mindful that your dietary experiments shouldn't always be your children's. Balance is the key with kids, and diversity, as I said, like especially with the vegan diet, you want to be giving them a diversity of nutrients.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the first interviews I ever did with a lifelong vegan, the man is in his 70s and he's a lifelong vegan, and the first 32 years he was a raw vegan, and so it can be done. It's just you got to really, it can't be an experiment. You got to know what you're doing, right?
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I did it for 7 years. I tried all different variations. I have a post about it on my few blog posts. There's one there. But I definitely learned a lot in my own journey. I mainly just stopped doing it not because I'm feeling unhealthy. It just became, I think I said, it was a kind of an arbitrary choice. Like, I'm doing this thing. It's, probably, and I did it, I had like not a lot of pushback because I was just kind of doing my daily life and no one was really caring what I was doing with my diet. But it just felt like, I'm probably making life a little harder on myself than I need to. And also, we go back to the topic of diversity. Maybe I'm like limiting my diversity because there's all these other things in my environment, like cooked sweet potatoes or cooked kale or whatever, that I'm not consuming or in the quantities I can in a raw diet that would help me. And so I just kind of, with the same curiosity that I had when I went raw, I switched back to see like, well, what would happen to a healthy plant-based or whole foods diet. I switched back to see like what would happen, like how would I feel, and remarkably I didn't feel significantly different, but I did feel emotionally just a little bit of a release, because it's like, oh, here I just opened up this world of cooked foods and simple things. Oatmeal was like amazing because it's just like so easy, right? So with going back to children, like you do have to be careful that you don't, it's okay to experiment with yourself, but don't do that on your kids.
Yeah, I think Mark Huberman, who when I was 32 years raw at first, he came across a potato because he'd been traveling a lot, and he was like, oh, I'm just going to try it.
Right.
Just because traveling was so challenging. Right. And then he felt so satiated from that. He was like, after that, it's like he doesn't feel quite satiated unless he gets a little cooked food in there.
Right. It does. It helps with satiation for sure. And you can also look around at the world and realize that in terms of longevity and health, there's plenty of people out there consuming potatoes or oatmeal that are doing amazing. And so it's not to say that a raw food diet can't be totally perfect and amazing for you, but I think depending on your lifestyle and the demands on your life and everything, for me it just started to feel like, well, why am I doing this again? And I was really inspired in the beginning. We attended, I don't know if you've heard of the Woodstock Fruit Festival, a lot of that movement, and I actually started out as kind of a challenge, and so it was really fun, but then I got to a point where I was like, it's probably, and also I had teenagers, and I was starting to think like, what am I modeling here? Am I really boring? Because I would always eat kind of like my thing, and so it just kind of opened up a little ease for me to switch back to just adding cooked food in,
Do you have any kind of quotes or last-minute encouraging words you want to share with others?
Other than, I think, for those that are regarding raising children on a vegan diet, I think depending on your support system and your knowledge of nutrition, you're gonna run up against fear and are you doing the right thing for your child? And you have to kind of check your own values, and first of all know that raising a child vegan is completely safe and is healthy, and you need to get the right support for your own self, for your mental health, so that you can be a good example to your kids. So I would just say when you run up against that fear, to check it, to get the support you need. If your doctor isn't supportive of you or says your nutritional choices are affecting your child, go and double check that with a knowledgeable vegan or vegan-friendly physician or a nutritionist.
Like a lifestyle medicine practitioner?
Yeah, or just a nutritionist who's versed in dealing with raising children on a vegan diet, or even just talking to people online who are doing it in a healthful way. It can be done. It has been done. And yes, we are sort of like a, dietary experiment, because there haven't been eons of generations on a solely strict vegan diet for ethical reasons. But any child eating a diversity of good quality, nutrient-dense food is going to be just fine. But you'll find you often won't feel that, especially as a young parent. You're so concerned about everything, and so just make sure you get the support you need, and don't let fear get in your way of your ethical concerns.
I hope you have a good rest of now's adventure that we're on here.
Yes, this is great. It's great to connect with everybody.
Yeah, and it's cool that there's a lot of vegan families that come here, and I guess it's their way of like exposing their children to other children, because a lot of times they get to play together in the groups.
That's what we did years ago. I think it's a core memory for my kids. So yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that from other parents too. So that's so cool. Well, I hope you have a great night, and thanks again.
Thank you. All right.